Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne Sharp World, where we are getting to the very end of 2023, and it's time to get weird. We are going to be taking a look at the newest offering from Backspacer Knives. It's actually very new. It just got in stock, I think, yesterday or the day before, and what we are talking about here is none other than the Backspacer Griffin. Look at that blade. Now, before we go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. Now, let's take a look at some overall specs on this very long, very different EDC. We have an overall length coming in at 8.24 inches, a blade length at 3.49 inches, and a blade thickness at 118 thousandths. We have a 14C 28N blade, and this is a hawkbill blade. Now, I understand that hawkbills aren't really for everyone's EDC, but this one does have some rather positive attributes that I like and actually prefer this a lot more over just about any other hawkbill blade I think I've ever handled. We have a compound grind, both flat grinds, just different thicknesses. You're much thinner up here and you're thicker down here. Now up around here, we are looking at 15 thousandths behind the edge, which is nice and slicey, and with that aggressive recurve on the hawkbill blade, it's going to make for some really good things. But let's get back to the specs. I'm already off track here. We have a handle length coming in at 4.75 inches, and a handle thickness at 510 thousandths, a liner lock for the locking mechanism, and a user of a right hand only tip-up carry. Weight coming in at 3.76 ounces. Designed by Rob Saniscauchi. I am sorry if I mispronounced that name. We have a price coming in at, normally these are $79, but right now they're on an end of year sale for $70. So you save a little money there. And for $70, I have no complaints. That's a lot of 14C 28N and your typical amazing Backspacer quality fit and finish that you're used to on pretty much all of their budget knives. Let's take a look at some size comparisons here. And we'll try and, it's probably about as level as we can get it. Let's bring out a couple other Backspacer. This is the Gator, which is probably a somewhat of a good comparison. The Gator's big, and really it's hard to really like get these side by side lined up because of all the curve in the Griffin. But here is the Thunderbird, probably the best in terms of length. Just about a spot-on comparison with the Thunderbird, and yeah, I think that really tells us a lot there. But I got a couple more in case maybe you haven't handled many Backspacer. You should, but if you haven't, here's some Civivis. Here is the Praxis, as well as the Sentinel Strike. And as you can see, it measures up pretty good with the Praxis, a little shorter than the Sentinel Strike. But yeah, it's always hard to get a true comparison of length with a knife like this because the camera, the curvature in the camera kind of throws it off a little. But nonetheless, this is a good size knife, as I'm sure you can probably see. And this is actually a really nice hawkbill blade. So normally, like I said, a hawkbill blade is going to be probably one of the last things I look for when I'm looking for a true everyday carry knife. One knife that you could, theoretically carry every day. I know a lot of us have the same sickness, and we have a lot more than just one knife, and that's a beautiful thing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you are looking for just that one or two knives to go back and forth on, a hawkbill blade, while it does have some benefits, it really comes down to like what you're doing on the daily. If you are someone working in a warehouse and just breaking down packages and opening boxes all day, this would be a great knife for that because the draw cut on this is exceptional. There's the only thing that could really even begin to compete with a draw cut on a hawkbill blade would be like a Wharncliffe blade because it has still a very aggressive tip, but still not as aggressive as this. You don't have to do much like kind of that reaching down when you go to do your draw cuts. You can just set it and go because of the aggressive angle of the hawkbill blade. Now the compound grind, I really think that's, in all honesty, mostly for aesthetics. And I think it really does help because I do think this is one really good looking blade. It has all the right lines and there's enough going on to where you don't get overwhelmed by the hawkbill blade itself. Sometimes just the curvature of a hawkbill blade can really overpower all the other aesthetics of a knife. But this one doesn't quite have that as aggressive of a curve on the hawkbill part of it, on where you normally have that real deep arch. It's not quite as aggressive, and I like that. It brings it back more towards almost that Wharncliffe type of blade, but it is still definitely a hawkbill blade. You definitely still have a noticeable amount of curve and aggressive leaning forward of the blade on this. So 100% a hawkbill blade, but like I said, definitely probably the most EDC-able hawkbill blade I've ever come across. And overall, just a really, really good looking blade that has all of the deployment methods. And I mean all of them. We got a flipper, we got a front flipper, we got a blade cutout that's good for middle finger flicking. If you want to do that real awkward thumb flick, you can do it. Even I can do it on this, but I don't really enjoy the thumb flick on a blade cutout. I've said it before. But however you want to open a knife, you can do it with this one, and that's really nice. And these are all executed pretty well. We'll talk a little more about one of these elements here when we get to the action portion of the review. But now let's talk about the handle, because the handle, with a blade this big, you need a long handle to really get a good purchase on, because you can make some really long sweeping cuts with this knife. And the handle on this is really nice for that, for a couple reasons. One, it's almost like holding, what am I thinking? Kind of imagine the thickness of like maybe a Sharpie, maybe something a little wider than a Sharpie with some curvature to it. It feels really nice in the hand. There's no hot spots. There's nothing that's going to bother you. Even the clip back here, while it is, some people would consider this to be somewhat of an awkward spot, it really has to be there though. You can't move it any farther back. If you would, the tip of the clip here would really annoy your hand, but the way it is right now, it doesn't bother me at all. It feels really good, but farther back, you're going to get over the handle, and that could get nasty, pretty uncomfortable. Fully recessed clip, so it's going to go in and out of the pocket just fine. And this backspacer, I really like the backspacer on this handle because it's so long. And what that does, the longer of a handle you have, the more likely you are to experience flex in the handle. Even when you have stainless steel liners that are this thick, you can still get some reasonable flex with a handle this long. This is a much longer than normal handle in terms of like just about, I wouldn't say anything, but the length and the narrowness of the handle, that's what will really cause the flex. If it was a wider handle, flex may not be as much of an issue, but with the narrowness of it and the length, that can make for some significant flex if you don't put anything back here, but they did. They put that nice backspacer back here. And they went with some interesting color choices. This is like a tan G10 with yellow scales, which doesn't look bad. I mean, it's just how often do you see yellow and tan on a handle? And there are, I believe, three or four other color options. So if yellow's not your thing, you definitely have other choices there. But yeah, overall, it is a pretty nice, comfortable handle. The backspacer, it actually adds an element of like a little more, I don't want to say grip, but you do notice it. It sits in your hand nicely. So yeah, it's a nice little touch, and it looks good too, because it's not just flush with the back of the handle. It actually comes out here. As you can see, it really sticks up from the back of the handle, which is different. But again, everything about this knife is different. So I don't really have any problems with that. I think everything works in this very weird harmony together on this one, which is pretty cool. It's really pretty cool. Now the action. So when it comes to middle finger flicking, I love it. It's very, very easy, very smooth. Everything about this knife is actually really smooth. So that's awesome. If you want to slow roll it, you can slow roll it. If you want to do that annoying thumb flick, go for it. It's pretty easy to do. If you want to give this guy a reach round, yes, we're talking about the knife. Stop. Mine's out of the gutter, people. But yes, this is absolutely reach around approved and very easy to do that. Now, the one little issue I have is with the rear flipper here, the standard regular flipper. They did a lot of good things here. They did really nice jimping, because if you didn't have this type of jimping, it would be kind of a pain to flick this big of a blade out. You could get some slips and whatnot, but with the good jimping and the proper angle, it is really easy to flick the blade out. The detent's just right. Like, there's so many elements of this action that was nailed. The one issue I have is not really with just one or two or three flips. If you're someone that fidgets and you do a lot of just regular flipping, you will get a little flipper fatigue with this knife. And by that, I mean the jimping will start to aggravate your index finger a little. Now, it's not something to where it's as bad as some other ones, but it will bother you just a little depending on your fingers. Like I have, I would say, working man's hands, I guess, so it doesn't bother me quite as much. But even after, like, as I was going through the review process and carrying this for a day, I was obviously fidgeting with it a lot. And that was kind of the one thing I noticed, where after, maybe 10 to 15 flips, you start to feel a little bit of, rawness on your fingertip, but that's also not the worst thing in the world, because first of all, too, I'm not going to be flipping this nearly as much. I'm going to be middle finger flicking it, because that's usually what if I can do that on a knife, that's usually what I do. The front flip is also very nice. That front flipper tab up there is very accessible. It's not too big, so it doesn't cause any issues. Like when you go to front flip this, you don't have the flipper tab hitting your finger, and you don't have the front flipper hitting your finger. So it's a very, very easy front flip. So yeah, a lot of enjoyable ways to open this blade. And overall, just a very, very smooth knife and a very different knife. What do you guys think of this? Is this something you would carry? And I don't really mean EDC, because my overall thoughts on this it's really hard to go wrong for $70, right? I mean, $70, you're getting a really nice knife. For me, and probably for a lot of people out there, it's probably not going to be a true everyday carry. But I could even see myself carrying this in a mixed kind of like weekly rotation, something to where, I'll carry this 1 or 2 days out of the week and something else, or just a nice change up to your typical drop point or something, to where, we all carry knives to use them, but we also just carry them to enjoy them. I mean, let's be real. There are some times I carry a knife to where I know I'm probably not going to need a knife that particular day, but you bet your behind I am still going to put a knife in my pocket. So this could be a perfect knife for that. And it's just enjoyable. It's cool. It's definitely a design that is out there and different. And for that, I would give it my recommendation. I do like it. I think it's really cool. Even just like however you look at it, it's just a very good looking knife that is also very, very slicey and sharp and will work just fine. So let me know what you guys think of this one. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And until the next one, I'm out.